And welcome to another episode of Experts Speak. I'm Michael DeLon, and today I am talking with Travis Parry. And Travis is going to rock your world because he did mine on work-life balance. Travis, thanks for squeezing me into your really busy schedule.
Oh, thanks for having me. Appreciate it, Michael.
Well, you're welcome. So Travis is the international best-selling author of the book Achieving Balance, and he's founded the what's called the Make Time Institute. So normally we are talking about marketing and business growth, and we're talking about that today from a different angle. About work-life balance. And I know, Travis, I want you to tell a little bit about your story of how you got into this and what you've seen happen in the world. You work with a lot of financial advisors, as do I. But as we were talking just a minute ago, what you have to share is applicable really to any industry, any person, because we all struggle with this stuff. You just kind of figured it out in your own way. And I want to talk today about how do we achieve balance. So Travis, tell us a little bit about you. How'd you get to doing this? And then let's unpack what you have to share.
Yeah. Oh, I appreciate that. Yeah. The book is definitely written for financial advisors, but it's applicable to business owners because of their principles. Their principles founded on what I've learned. How I got into this as a financial advisor myself, I was struggling with work-life balance.
Yeah.
I felt myself overweight. I was not spending enough time with my family. I was pulled in just about every different direction, volunteering at my church and in the community, and found that, gee, I'm running my own business as a financial advisor and it's running me into the ground. And, part of that is the industry. Part of that is the industry of work nights and weekends until you make it. But again, that's not too different from most business owners that get told
Right.
that as they building their startup business from scratch, right?
That's right.
So here you are marketing and advertising and doing all that. And then all of a sudden you get clients. You're like, well, now I've got to service the clients. I've got to help them. And wait a minute, what about all this marketing advertising time? And how do you manage it? And so I was really into time management and focusing on how to be productive. So much that I eventually got trained by a coach who wanted to have me be a trainer because I was so good at it. He's like, have you thought about being certified? I was like, no, but that could be a really good blend for helping business owners because they struggle.
Totally.
And so I kind of transitioned from advisor to coach because I love doing that even more than advising. And now I primarily help advisors and business owners with their time management.
That's awesome. And one of the things that really resonated with me, Travis, as I was reading more about your background and things is how you saw a lot of marriages in trouble and how our work life so many times does not benefit our family life. And how do you mitigate that? Because when you do that, you can actually have both. You can be successful in work and in family when you do it the right way. Talk at a high level. Let's talk about achieving balance. And what have you learned about what are some of the real struggles, I guess, and let's just talk financial advisors. Everybody listening knows this is applicable to everybody, but let's just dive into financial advisors. What are those struggles that they're dealing with, and what are they, I guess, missing in a sense? How are they not thinking right when you meet with them first? And what's your process about what is that magic sauce that you figured out that you share with people so that they can achieve balance?
So most are working more than 55 hours a week, which doesn't seem like a lot, but if you're in an industry, so this is where I think is exacerbated more for financial advisors. They're in an industry where they're trying to help wealthy clients most of the time to have better balance in their own life, yet they're the ones who are working way more than they should. Does that make sense?
Totally.
So there is this cognitive dissonance when two competing ideas happen at the exact same time, which causes a ton of stress.
Yes.
And then they bring that stress home from work, to their place of home and refuge. And then they may have some conflict at home because there's problems there. And then that conflict comes back to work. And it's just a constant flow of stress. Yeah. And I found that through sad experience, my father passed away at 49. And I want to say that was complication, maybe a little bit of genetics, but probably a whole lot of stress. The more I researched it and studied it, realized, yeah, there's probably a lot of stress here. And it came from relationship. It came from business. It came from trying to do everything for everyone, which he was. Like there was 1,000 people standing room only at his funeral. And when I spoke as the last speaker for that funeral, I remember just having the sense of awe going, my father really touched everyone. Like, so in a way, it motivated me. My father's death motivated me to be a much better person,
Mm.
but it also motivated me to figure out, why did stress take him so early? Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Oh, it makes
So
total sense.
so here's what I came up with after all my research and time spent at graduate school and testing these theories. I found that the make time method is really what I call it, really works. And that is, you first get super productive at work, and then you build around your time frame, where you're so much more productive, all of the time to do your personal goals, your health goals, your relationship goals, your own personal financial goals, your own fun and recreation goals, your goals with the community, all these other 9 areas that are super important to you. But you pad those and make those so important and fun and accomplishing to do that you don't want to go back
Right.
to that workaholic life. Does that make sense?
It totally does. And I love the way you said that, is because we're addicted many times to a workaholic life. We've been fed a lie that says I have to work 55, 60 hours a week. And if I don't do that, I'm a failure. And
That's
there's
right.
no way, by the way, there is no way to be successful in business if you don't do that. I call that a lie. You bought the lie, right? There are other ways to do it. And finding balance in life. And like you said, you've got these other 9 areas. Let's unpack that, because you've got to be productive at work. But that doesn't mean you've got to be the only guy doing it. I'm a big fan of systems and hiring people and delegating. I'm only good at 4 things, Travis. I'm really good at those 4 things. Outside of that, I'm pretty mediocre. I've learned to delegate the other things so that I can focus and be more productive. I think a lot of people need to do that, but let's talk about that. Being productive at work is great. I think a lot of people get that. Let's talk about the rest of them, the balance. How do they go about that?
So I think this is one of the big misnomers, is that, oh, in order to be balanced, we have to have everything at the same time. You
Yeah.
can have it all, like you mentioned, you can have it all, but you don't have to do it all. And that's the big key that I found to myth 1 in my book, Achieving Balance. The first myth is that balance is doing it all at the same time. No, it's not. Balance is not having some type of fancy equilibrium. Balance, what I found after interviewing over 150 advisors and business owners, balance is actually living your highest priorities. When you know what your highest priorities are and you're spending and making the time to be there on those priorities, it doesn't necessarily have to be first. It just means that they got to be there in your calendar,
Mm-hmm.
that those are priority. Then the rest of it will take care of itself. For me, business is like my number 6 priority out of 10. Okay. Well, but Travis, like, you need a business to have finances, to have the time. Well, of course you do. And of course I spend time doing it, but it's not my number 1. My number 1 is my physical health. And I can tell you, I'm a little bit under the weather this week. And I'm feeling a whole lot better today, but I was under the weather earlier this week. And when my physical health is gone, like, I have no balance.
That's right.
I'm tanked. I'm done. I've got to put everything off. I can't work very well. There's all these other things. And quite honestly, that's why we need to rest. That's why we need to relax, because our body's saying, you've overdone it, pal, and
That's
you've got to
right.
take a step back. Now, that's really simplistic, but it's so true. When you keep your highest priorities in order and you make time for those things, then the other 7 or 8 other, important things in your life, those will actually be helped because you're focusing on those top 3. And typically those are physical health, spiritual health, and relationships.
Yeah.
Those are the things that people really say. Never have I had a married business owner tell me, Travis, my career is number 1. Never has that happened. And it's pretty amazing. So that's kind of how I, tout balance. And quite honestly, I thought about the marketing of this book. I thought about writing The Myth of Balance, because it quite honestly is a myth. And I get on stage and people are like, well, what's balance? And that's kind of how I started off, is, what is balance?
Yeah.
And that's kind of where we leave it.
That's really cool. I talked when I talk to people about balance. I've had this phrase for years. You find balance by losing it. And I always go back to teaching your kids how to ride a bike, right? They're all over the place. And then they finally get it, right? And then they lose, but they find it. And in life's the same thing. We've got this center line that's balance, right? But we're always zigzagging back and forth. And the deal, I think, is not to zigzag really far away from that center line of what we would think about, but to realize it's always going to be a zigzag. You're always going to be out of balance at some level, and that's okay. But I love how you put that. It's living your highest priorities. Are you exercising every day, 15 minutes a day, every day? If great. How are you having dates with your wife and kids? Great. Are you going to church, reading the Bible? Great, right? Mm-hmm. All of that. That's
spot on.
That's how you achieve balance, right? It's almost a misnomer, right? Because it's almost like you never achieve it.
That's right. Yeah.
So
no, and that's the funny part of the book title is like, I put achieving balance on there because it's like, is it this ever something that, is achieved?
Yeah.
Not really. Like it's always work in progress. Even the book title, I've got, this equilibrium that's unequal with this balance image. And you're right. Like you're always working on it, always. But the second myth that I think most people get hung up on is, okay, well, I'll just get productive. I'll get super productive. And you're like, well, Travis, that's part of your make time method. Yeah, it is. But if all you do is become super productive at work, then you're likely to just become a more productive workaholic.
Yeah.
If there's no boundaries. So you can be productive, but you have to set boundaries and you have to create what I call protectors of your time. Because if you don't do it, no one else will. So I like to think of your work as a castle. And you have to have a wall, a drawbridge, a moat, soldiers, infantry, like there to protect your time. Because if you don't do that, everyone else is going to attack you, your clients, even your family might like interrupt. Hey, I've got a really important thing to talk to you about in a text right now. I'm on a call with Michael. Like, I'm not going to take that. I turn everything off and do not disturb and have all my boundaries set up so that I can focus. Otherwise, we multitask throughout our day and we get nothing done. Right?
Nothing done. Yes. The multitasking myth, man. That's going to be my next book. The multitasking myth. It is so not worth it. Right. And nothing. Yeah. Can I say nothing? Nothing is urgent.
Right.
Right. In business. It really isn't. And you've got to protect yourself. Again, I met with this financial guy this morning and he's like, I get tired of all these client calls on weekends. I said, so don't take them. Find somebody to get them, hire a call center. I mean, really? Right. It's like, take that stress out of your life. And he really, the eyeballs went on when I said, I'm call me selfish. I've set my business up to serve me and my lifestyle. Right. And that's okay. And he was like, you can do that. That's okay. That's ethical. I'm like, it's totally ethical. Cause otherwise I'm sacrificing. I'm out of balance with my family. Oh, I got to leave the dinner table because I've got a client who really,
but and some of that I found, Michael, is at the beginning, you're being told you have to do all this. So you get into this habit and then they tell you, well, 5-10 years, then you can, change your calendar and you don't have to do that anymore. The problem is most people, when they get stuck in a habit, they're just going to keep going. That's so right. I noticed that early on and I said, no to night calls, no to weekends. And I just figured I'm going to have to be a ton more productive to keep up with everybody else. Yeah. So that was a little bit of a driver, a little bit of a push to get me there. But then, if you don't have those boundaries and you don't have time off, it also doesn't allow you to relax, rejuvenate, and feel like work is a great place to be. Because you show up Monday and you got no break on Saturday. You did work on Sunday to prepare for Monday. Yeah. What's the point? Like you didn't have any time off to really rejuvenate and relax so that you can, again, feel like that was a reward. So I wrote this book, Achieving Balance. I didn't spend more than 30 hours a week working. And I basically wrote the book by transcribing it. I know a lot of the same methods that I know you suggest. I transcribed it. I had an editor write most of it, and I finished and polished it up and did, a bunch of the last editing myself. But I didn't spend more than 30 hours writing the book. That would have been contradictory to what I'm teaching other people to do. right? That would
Buy
be
my book, Achieving
unethical.
Balance, and I got way out of balance writing it, but it's done.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think advisors get stuck and other business owners get stuck when they think, well, I've got to be there for my clients all the time. It's impossible.
Yeah.
You cannot do that.
That's right.
You have to say no. You have to learn to say no. And that means you're saying yes to higher important, priorities in life when you say no.
Yeah, totally. So I've got lots of coaches that build into me in my life, right? And one of them talks about focus time, and it's a 2-hour period of time every week where I'm working on a project, a high priority project. But the other thing that he's brought into my life is not checking email all the time. He's like, shut up, just turn it off, check it once a day, maybe twice. And he says, put an autoresponder on there. Then when somebody emails, say, hey, you know what? I'm in the middle of a project. I will check my email at 1 o'clock and 4 o'clock today. I'll get back to you. You set the expectations because everyone's email is urgent. It's not. And you know how fast I can blow through 25 or 30 emails in my inbox? That fast. Do you know the distraction?
Yeah, and that's part of being productive is
Yes.
not being multitasking throughout your day. Have specific times where you check email, and then have specific times where you clear it all out.
Yes.
That's one of the big things I've learned and I teach is a system of processing. You clear your email, you clear your task list, you clear your voicemail, your to-do list, all of these things out, because then you're not constantly going, where is that information? Where is
Travis,
that?
but then I don't get the badge, Travis. I don't get the badge. I get 300 emails a day, and I've got 8 emails in my.
Yeah, right. Isn't that it's that self-gratification, that ego feel like, look how important I am. I got 500 email this weekend.
Seriously,
I'm important. Half of those were junk, right?
We know totally. Yeah, I tell people I go home every night. My objective is to go home with my inbox at 0. Nothing in my inbox that are going, I couldn't do that. I get 500 emails a day. I'm like, well, you're not doing something right.
That's right.
But
some of that is just weeding out the junk. Some of that is just spending time to process your emails every day. And all the other collection points, most business owners have about 30 of them. I teach them how to get down to 6.
Yep.
Because if you're down between 4 and 6, you're super productive. I've been that way for a long time, and it's very helpful. But again, then it comes down to those boundaries. And I think myth number 3 in the book that I write about is who's the best person to help you keep those boundaries? It's your spouse. If you're married, it's your spouse. If you're not, maybe it's a business partner. Maybe it is another relative, a family, friend, or somebody, a mentor of yours for a while. But I've been in the coaching industry long enough to know that those who get into a coaching program by themselves, a lot of times they kind of, they get up, see some progress, and then they kind of go back to where they came from as far as a learning curve. And they end up back in some of those same habits and problems when they're done with the coaching or done with an education program. Yeah. That's very standard adult learning. I've seen it in all the research I've done. So how can you help this? Well, the number one thing I found is internal accountability. And your spouse is the one who knows your schedule, who should know your schedule, who should know when you're going to be there, when you're not, and they can help you to not be that workaholic anymore. In addition to that, when couples work together on their goals, they are more likely to achieve them financially, health-wise, and relationally. So it's not just a buffer for being a productive workaholic, but it's a great internal accountability source of someone that can help you to achieve all of your goals in life and go from just being that person you like and love to an incredible teammate.
Absolutely. And what better way? I mean, how many times do we say, well, I'm working really hard to provide for my family? It's like, but there's a disconnect there when you can involve them at some level. My wife is my bookkeeper in our business, right? She's not involved in day-to-day marketing decisions and everything, but she has a clue what's going on. She knows my schedule. She travels with me many times, but she's there to just help me to go, are you okay? Is that the right thing to do? And just that wise ear, right? How many times has God spoken to me through my wife, right? It's like, oh yeah, I hadn't thought about that, dear. Right. Bringing them in and integrating them so that we're doing life together. I mean, good golly, we're married, right? So it's not exclude them. It's bring them in and make them your key influencer, and in a sense, your board of advisors. Part of your board of advisors should be your spouse if you're married. Absolutely.
And so I suggest once a week, you at least go over your calendar. You find out what your schedule's like, what you're doing, what your goals are, and then being able to work together on that. Now, it's not going to be perfect every week. It's not going
Right.
to be perfect, most times, but it's going to be a whole lot better than if you never had that conversation and you involve your spouse, what I call couple development instead of personal development. If you just personally develop the rest of
Love
your
that.
life, that's great. But actually, we've actually shown research to see that, or research has shown that when couples, individuals just develop personally, they can actually develop away from each other
Oh, totally.
instead of together. And that's the point of the marriage in the first place. I mean, you look at people like Bill Gates and others who, oh, they just announced they're getting divorced. They have everything.
Yeah.
They have literally anything that a person on this planet could imagine.
Yeah.
They couldn't figure out how to keep their marriage together.
Yeah.
There's a reason. The reason is very clear to me, and I've seen over and over and over again, is that people develop alone. They develop separately. They don't develop together. Now, I don't know all the variables, and I'm not just saying Bill Gates is a bad guy or his wife is a bad
No,
person. No, 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 no. I'm not judging them at all. I'm just simply saying this is an example of that people don't develop together throughout life.
yeah, and I love that you said that, because there are two myths that I've fought against for years, and I've heard in business. Okay, the two myths, and typically they're not stated, but they're underlined. Right? Is successful people have gone bankrupt, and most of the time they've been divorced at least once, usually twice. I heard those early on. I'm a follower of Christ. I'm like, well,
Right.
ain't going to do that. So I guess I'm not going to be successful. And then I created this whole new paradigm of like, no, I'm going to do it this way. Then I found good role models of good, godly Christian people, successful in business, giving to the community, great marriages for 30, 40, 50 years, awesome family. I'm like, those are my models, right? But it's the myths that we hear that we start believing, that you in your book start to explode and go, no, no, it's principles. Here's what's going to work, because principles never change.
Yeah, 100% agree. And this myth of personal development has created a $56 billion industry. And I'm not poo-hooing personal development, but like, Travis, you coach and you have a book, and isn't that personal development? Yes, but the reality is, even a book that you read is not personal. Somebody else has come up with something. Therefore, you have a relationship with that author. You have a relationship with the coach. Like, it's very much a relational component of life. We
Yeah.
need that accountability. We need other people
Yeah.
to help us develop individually. I mean, we could talk all day about spiritual development, and sometimes this personal development pulls us away from our spiritual development. And some people, well, I'm not spiritual, I don't believe in God. Yeah, well, you probably just call it something else, or you have a different form of it.
Right.
In reality, whether that's the universe, your own energy, there is a source to which you turn for knowledge. And I think that sometimes that actually pulls us away. And at the root of marriage, what keeps people married the majority of the time is their shared beliefs. It's
Absolutely.
their shared religion. It's their shared private religion. It's what they do in their homes, in their own periods, when they pray and read and study and go to church and do all those things together, that actually enriches their marriage. So pulling them away from religion, pulling them away from God, pulling them away in this guise of personal development can be destructive. I'm not saying it
Right.
is. It can be, but it also has been shown that, it's kind of addictive. Well, I need the next Tony Robbins. I need the next, Bill Backer, whoever it is that they crave. And it just kind of becomes like a diet, where I need the next diet. I need the next thing, instead
Yeah.
of focusing on principles and what we already have, which is our relationship. Now, where people struggle is, well, Travis, I love my wife, or I love my spouse, but I don't ever think that we can get on that page where we can keep each other accountable. That's a totally different,
Yeah.
I understand
Yeah.
that that's a totally different thing. But that's why you need to learn the skills, and we can teach you those skills to communicate, to trust, to have intimacy in every area, and really work together. And I found that when couples go through this part of the program with me, it helps to improve the relationship. In fact, one quick story, I had a couple that came to me who they wanted to get out of debt, and they wanted to, save up for their dream home. And so I was helping them do that. They managed to pay off close to $60,000 of debt and saved up and purchased their dream home in a very short period of time. These weren't super, wealthy individuals, very normal standard of living, one income household. And what was interesting, by the time we were done and I brought them through this couple development process, they both said, I didn't realize how much help this would be for our relationship and how much this helped us to be better parents, especially to our child who suffers with some special needs issues.
Mhm.
And they went on about their relationships. Yes, they achieved their financial goals, but it was because they improved their relationship.
Yes. Yeah. And that is so key. And it just hit me here is I want to encourage people to get your book, Achieving Balance. And you got a special website, and it'll be in the show notes, but it's achievingbalancebook.com. And I think you told me through this month through May,
That's right.
it's free book plus shipping right now. So
That's right.
grab a copy. But what if you got a copy of Travis's book and you and your spouse read it together over the next month or 2 months, one chapter a week maybe, and just talk about what's going on in because you know what, as busy as we are as business owners, Travis, my wife is probably busier than me. She's a homeschooling mom. She manages the house. She runs my book. She does taxes for about 6 other people because she's great. I could go on and on and on. Your wife's probably the same way.
Yep.
We all need balance. What if you did that? Start your own couple development process using Travis's book, Achieving Balance. How about that? Could that
Oh, it'd
work?
be huge. If people would just do that, there would be so much better balance because they're on the same team. They're
Yeah.
headed in the same direction.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to see that. And grab the book. It's free right now. Just pay the shipping costs. We'll send that out to you. It's a paperback copy, the number one best-selling, edition. And in addition to that, I've got a whole bunch of worksheets, a guidebook that's included that's free. I've got a 10-minute video training about how to clear out your inbox every day, like Michael does.
Yes.
Okay, so
Love
he's on
it.
track. He's doing awesome. Plus, I have 3 hours of productivity training. I call it the Time Management Mastery Program that I throw in for free just for ordering the book on achievingbalancebook.com.
That's awesome. All right. So do that. Um, yeah, I mean, this is one of those, Travis, we could go on and on and on. The other aspect, and I want to go back to this. You said we chase, I call it the shiny object syndrome, right?
Oh,
In
totally.
marketing, we're doing it, but in personal development, we're doing, I need the next Tony Robbins book. I need the next Jones book. And
Mhm.
I always tell people stop. And I ask them, I care less, Travis, about how many books you read a year. I want to know, how many books have you reread?
Yeah,
Okay. So I've got
true.
2 or 3 books that I reread on a regular basis because I obviously haven't mastered them yet, right? Let's simplify life and go back down and go, okay, I need to reread this book
Yep.
because it saves me from running after the next thing that's going to change my life.
Yeah. And one of those books I mentioned early on in the book that I wrote, Achieving Balance, is Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. And the reason
Holy,
is, and most people don't see it this way. They see Victor's struggle in a concentration camp and how he was psychologically strong enough to survive. But they don't, if they're not careful, they don't catch the whole reason why. It's all about that why. And
yes,
that why is that his wife was in another concentration camp.
yeah,
And his entire focus was he wanted to be there in case she made it out, that he could be there for her. And that I think is crucial for everyone to understand, is that his whole motivation was to be there so that when she got out of the concentration camp, he could be there for her. Oh, looks
there we
like
go.
we
You're
were.
back. Yeah, we stopped for just a second. I got you on Viktor Frankl and his wife's in
Yeah,
another
yeah. I'll
concentration
go
camp. Let's
back
pick
there.
up there. Sorry about
Yeah,
that.
yeah. No, it's okay.
Internet
So
issue.
I'm just saying, a lot of people don't pick up on Viktor Frankl's book. It wasn't just about him being psychologically strong enough to make it through,
Yeah.
but the reason why his real why was because in the back of his mind, he knew he needed to be there. So when
Yes.
his wife got out of her concentration camp, he could be there to support her and welcome her back to society. He watched a lot of friends and a lot of really important people in that camp die, the ones that he thought would make it, because they simply cracked
Yeah.
They simply gave up on their why, but he kept his why close. And
Yeah.
when we keep those principles that are values, are really important to us close, and we keep that as our why, then we won't lose it. We won't lose out on what our most important priorities are, regardless of how successful we are, regardless of how much money we make or not.
That's
Um,
right.
Really, all matters is those most important things. Is we can't take any of this with us, regardless of what religion you are. Most believe that when we leave this existence, it's done, right? The pharaohs tried to keep and take all their money with them. It
Yep.
didn't really work out for them.
It does. Right, because we benefit from that, right? So,
Right,
but it's those relationships, right?
yeah,
And that's so key.
that's the
And
gold right there.
it really is. And the one thing you haven't mentioned that I love, and especially now, honestly, the pandemic has helped drive more people to working from home. I love the fact that I work what I call on property, but out of the house. So I've got an attic in my garage attic that we built, or an office. My wife's gone right now. She just left. I'm here. My girls are in the house doing their homeschool stuff. I'm spending time with them. I get to relieve my wife of her burden of saying, how can I go serve somebody and be with the girls? Well, I can take care of that. So I'm loving my
Right.
wife now because of an opportunity to work remotely. Financial advisors can do that. Business owners can do that. Maybe not everybody, but you can structure your life to find that balance as partners and as building that relationship in our marriage through principles and how I've structured my business so that I can achieve balance in my life. That's why your book, Travis, is so dear to my heart as far as your message, and I think it needs to be proclaimed. And that's one reason I wanted to have you on, because I knew it would be helpful for me. I'm a little selfish in that, but I know that my audience is going to love it too. And I just want, if you're listening to this, go to achievingbalancebook.com, grab a copy of it, read it for yourself, but read it with your spouse, and start moving to an understanding what does balance look like for you, because it doesn't have to be a rat race. It really doesn't.
Life's too short for it not to be enjoyed. Life is meant to be enjoyed.
It,
I've heard that from a leader of mine, a mentor of mine for many years. Life is meant to be enjoyed. Yes, it might be difficult. There are challenges,
yeah,
but you might as well pick up the best person that you want to in this life and make the best of it,
that's
and
right.
continue on, staying in that balance, keeping your priorities high so that you can feel fulfilled. At the end of our life, we'll all look back and be able to say, gee, I really blew it, or I really did an excellent job trying my hardest to keep those priorities in order while I had to do everything else.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm going to end on what may feel like a downer, but I think it's really going to be an upper. And it comes out of your story and my story and the one I just lived this month. Is if you're confused about priorities in life, if you really want to get a clear picture, I'm going to recommend you go to somebody's funeral and you sit through that. And then you take a day or two after that and you start writing out your funeral, your eulogy. What are people going to say about you? Stephen Covey wrote about this in his book years ago, right? 7 Habits.
Yep.
Go to the funeral, go to the end of life, and realize in a few years, that's you. What do you want people to say about you from your family perspective, from your community perspective, from your church, from your, that really is resonating with me. I buried a dear friend of mine recently who died of a heart attack, 63, boom, gone. Wow. What do I want? And that could be me at any moment, right? What do I want set at my funeral? What impact do I really want? And what balance do I want my family to have, and what memories?
Funerals, I appreciate you sharing. Funerals are a time to reflect, and
They
it's a
are.
time to think about my own, our own lives. My father-in-law recently passed away. He was 62. I
Yeah.
have a heart attack, and I'm big into that research into heart health, and that's one of the biggest reasons why I wrote this, right? Because of my own father. But you're right; it's that reflection period. And so, in the beginning of the book, the way that I help people figure out what their values are is I have them write a mini obituary.
Yeah.
It's kind of this Covey-esque type of idea, but from then I've learned how to pull values that then
Yeah.
become your lifelong goals. So I take it into a different direction, a little bit more logical direction of looking backwards. So I appreciate, what Covey has begun a great mentor of mine. I've
Yeah.
read most of his books and even re-listened to one on a trip on the way home. Right? Like, I mean, it's just classic stuff. Like, man, this is
Oh,
like 30 years old, but it's classic.
yeah.
And I think that's such a great, word of wisdom. And then take this mini obituary and use it as your motivation. Don't write about how you died, but write about the different areas of life
Yeah.
that you don't necessarily want to achieve some goal, but want to become something. And I think that's the crucial piece that I found. So I appreciate that. That's a great way to end the segment.
Great. Well, Travis Parry, thank you so much, man. Thanks for being on my podcast. Thanks for writing the book, Achieving Balance. It'll be in the show notes, achievingbalancebook.com. Go get it, read it, apply it, and make a difference in your life and in that of those around you. Travis, thank you for being here, man.
Thanks, Michael.